stuff from Twitter, loads of different sources. Idea being, you know, see how people interact with that data. Would you be interested in taking one?
Thanks for explaining it.
No problems. Crime stats, local economic stats, all sorts of things. If you're interested in that kind of thing, interested in being in the know, or you're just interested in being in a part of a research project, would you be interested in taking part?
Probably not.
Okay.
Really interested in this.
Worth a try.
Yeah.
Worth a try. It scrapes the internet for interesting information about your area, the area you happen to be in. It scrapes the internet and gives you little brilliant bits of data and information. Take it for a couple of months and play with it. It's unique. There's only 120 of them in the world. This is a Datacatcher, brand new device. It's location aware. It gives you facts and figures about your area in London as you move around.
Okay. What time?
Hello there. These are Datacatchers.
It's good, isn't it? It's challenging and I think fascinating bits of knowledge.
Yes. Yeah.
Useless bits of knowledge. Someone here previously thought this area was a rat area. Was that me?
Yes. We just did that.
We just did that. It's come up now.
Well, I stopped because I'm having a quiet day. I'm not in school today. So I usually don't stop for people asking me stuff on the street. I mean, the thing is quite big. He asked me to take it with me everywhere, and it is quite big. So I was thinking that might be inconvenient, but then it might be fun on the bus to have all these questions asked and stuff. How is this place doing? The pits, forgotten, on the slide, or stagnant?
So I'm taking it from my son because my son is looking for accommodation. I want bedroom flats or studio flats. But I know with this, he'll be okay, we'll be happy, he'll be comfortable. As a young guy, young boy, that's why I'm taking this one. Right? I've just been given the spot. Is it what college is it? What school is it? Where are you from? Goldsmiths. Goldsmiths College. I'm not too sure what it is, but I'm quite happy to use it and to gain information about the local area. So yes, I like the colour, I like orange.
It's a very interesting idea. The only thing I'm a little bit confused about is that my phone gives me a lot of information, and I'm not sure about the validity of this machine, how you're going to use it. But it'd be interesting to see how you correlate all the information. But I travel a lot, so I'll be in London, so I'll be able to give you masses of data.
People have just been intrigued to find out what on earth we're doing, and we look so different to the normal market traders. They are also really reacting to the little bits of data we've got displayed on the balloons or on our t-shirts, and they'll react in a sort of personal way and go, oh well, yeah, I'm a skilled tradesman, or go, oh well, I've got a garden, I've got a front garden, and they kind of reacting and responding to the data already, which is really quite interesting, which kind of bodes well. I think that's what the whole thing is about.
First of all, I couldn't work out how to work it, because I thought everything that came up on the screen I could answer. And then I realised that it's only local data, whichever way you want to say it, is all you can answer on it. And I doubt whether I'll ever go to somewhere like Sloane Square where I could answer that the dogs were handbag. So I thought the questions were quite narrow. And I got a bit annoyed that I couldn't put what I would answer to the question in.
Personally, like after getting over the novelty of being able to do that with the instrument, I found a lot of the data I picked up quite inane and boring, and I wondered what the point of it is. Without knowing what the project's for, it seemed somewhat pointless, and I felt that a lot of the data I picked up I could either Google or get in so many other sources. The depth of the information was that it's not really astounding, and you know, I mean, even from a novelty or, you know, from a fun perspective, I doubt I'd be the centre of any Christmas party taking this with me, to be honest with you, with the information I've got on it. No disrespect to those people working very hard on this project, but you do want an honest response from me, and I can assure you that I'll give you that. You know, my name is Frank, being Frank by name and nature.
The person who passed it to me, I opened it in front of him, and because I was really excited and I wanted to show him this really weird thing, and we turned it on, and we were completely mesmerized. We sat there for like maybe 15 minutes, and I was surprised that it was very highly hyper located. So I was at university. It told me it's connected to the King's Cross Granary Square Tower, and it was exactly where I was sitting. So it was a bit unsettling in a way that it was so specific and accurate to me. I would be sitting here and I was looking, and it would say something like people have X amount of income, 5% of this area are pensioners and stuff like that. What's missing is the ability to judge the validity of that information. Like, I think what's very misleading about data is how you judge data and how you use data, because it's, from my experience, it can be incredibly misleading, and it could really actually make you believe things that are completely wrong.
I think my overall reflection is that at first, when I first received the device and I saw what it did, I thought the questions were quite funny. You know, quite memorable questions with funny answers. And they're quite good answers, actually. I thought were quite clever. And I'd be interested to see the sort of response different Datacatchers have provided on those quite funny questions. But the questions didn't seem to change. And also, if I was asked to do something where it was more obvious why information was useful, then maybe I'd be more inclined to I feel like I was providing a service that was useful, right? But I'm not quite sure how useful knowing whether dogs are like handbags, or even though it's quite funny, I'm not sure. It didn't really push me to take this device and find other places to go and investigate the answer to the question.
I thought it's been interesting how it's been worded. Sometimes there's it doesn't quite make sense and it's quite funny. I think it's problems within your area, and they're in little speech things, and it will be rubbish, and it will just say rubbish in quotes, and it's stuff like that I thought was really, it's almost funny. I don't know whether it's informative, but is this a cat or dog area, and an answer can be horse, things like that I thought were fun. And yeah, I think what I've enjoyed the most are kind of the human kind of side to it, where it's meant to be this machine that just pumps out information to you. It's kind of what the intricacies in where it's kind of not quite right is where I've kind of liked using it the most.
I'll point this out because I wouldn't know about this otherwise. The British being very, very coy about what they earn and what they owe and all the rest of it, but it says here, a credit agency describes people around here as bright young things. And what surprised me about this area, also Stratford and Southwark, they're quite young communities. I think it says the average age in 2020 in Southwark will be between 25 and 29. In Newham, which is a very young borough, it's going to be something like 24. So it's interesting to see how young London is. Another thing on here that surprises me is how few people claim what they call the state pension. And I start thinking to myself, what does that mean? Because we're all too young, or we don't, people don't make it? So you start thinking, people don't live long enough to claim this benefit? Depending on where you live in London, I don't know. It's hard to work out. That's the only bit of information I've started to think I need to go into this deeper, because I'd like to live long enough to get my pension, statistically.
So I'm Giulia, I'm Italian. I work in Hammersmith. I work in a brand consultancy as a user researcher, and I live in Shoreditch. Like yesterday, I had at the end of a very busy and heavy week. I look at Ermenegildo. This is how I call my Datacatcher. And Ermenegildo told me that Hackney has a very low level of happiness. So I was like, okay, thanks. I mean, that's a great start of the day. But on the other side, is like there are some information like Fix My Street, that was telling me how in Warner E2, which is kind of close here, residents are kind of worried by the fact that when big trucks pass on the road, the building shakes. And that's exactly what I was experiencing, but I didn't really know what was going on. And actually, thanks to the Datacatcher, I realized that I'm not going crazy, but it's something that is an actual issue that we should be addressed somehow.
And why? Can you explain a bit about the name?
Well, Ermenegildo is a very weird Italian name. That's it. And I mean, it's kind of weird, this thing. Like when I brought it to work, everyone was like, oh, so you have to like point it out and it has information. So I thought like it's a bit of a weird thing and a weird name is perfect.
I found it really informative. After about the second day or third day I was using it, it was starting to collect tweets. So, they were coming up about somebody in this area has tweeted about, so it was collecting all that stuff, I went to London Bridge with it, and then it was telling me all about that. Although the reception got a bit fuzzy here and there, but, with the buildings and what have you, but it was still giving me lots of stuff about that. What are the dogs like around there? And I said, well, I did the survey, and I said, well, basically around here, it's in this particular area, it's all, I saw the one that came up, the options about your dogs, are they a weapon? And I thought, oh yeah, probably around here they are. And then they were more like handbag dogs where I was. And then definitely, I also took it to Essex one day, where it was giving me all the information about the local area, and I did a little survey while I was there. I know obviously it's a prototype, so it's obviously a bit, and I was on the train coming back and people were looking at me wondering why I was reading The Torch. Because they was sort of like, I probably thought you do get them, so.
I think initially I was just turning it on when I got home and reading the same data and over again, and the kind of same questions were coming up and I was answering them. And I did that a few times, and then I think I just got a bit bored and turned it off. And then I realised that I was meant to be taking it around with me, leaving it on continuously, and it catching the data like a kind of net going through a glass house full of butterflies or something, and then reading back at the end of the day. Weirdly, I found the kind of timestamp at the bottom and the location more fascinating to watch. So just seeing where I'd been at different times of the day and flicking back and kind of going, oh, okay, well, it was connected to that cell tower then at 5 o'clock. Where was I? I was on the train, and then and I just found that like more interesting than the data itself, which was I'm sure not the purpose of the Datacatcher.
Yeah, it was really cool at first. I was like checking through and finding some facts out about Hackney, but some which I thought were maybe quite incorrect. Like it said the house prices around here were really low. I was like, definitely not. So that was a bit frustrating because I was like, well, I don't know where they're getting their data from, but it must be really old. And then I took it to work, showed some people there. They were really interested. But I kind of after even in different boroughs, it started coming up with the same information. So I was a bit like, is everyone just talking about their dogs in the same way in London? That seemed to be a common question that came up about what people were talking about their dogs. The next one just said the government says that 1,720 people in Hackney have never worked. Well, what is the population of Hackney? Is that normal? I just, kind of, if that got into the wrong hands, like they could start, really kind of making people politicised around kind of certain issues that maybe aren't very correct. Yeah, I enjoyed reusing it, but I kind of got frustrated that I wasn't able to input what I thought about things. So when it was kind of talking about what people had said, I wanted to kind of disagree or agree or kind of say something different. And, used to be able to doing that in kind of modern world where it's more participatory, and it was kind of a bit frustrating to have something where there was like no other buttons or no other kind of like ways that I could actually kind of tell it what I thought.
It on and I started looking at the entries. I think the thing that really struck me first was what a depressing area I live in, because all the statistics are about crime and health and how unhealthy the people are in my neighbourhood and in my community. And that immediately kind of starts you thinking, is this the place that I live in? Am I really living in a place that is so full of crime and death and unhealthy people? On the Datacatcher allow you to kind of just see something slightly different about the neighbourhoods as you pass through them, which I thought was really nice. Immediately with every entry you kind of start to think, what are the borders that are being defined here by the entry when they talk about neighbourhoods or boroughs or whatever? Who's defined that border, and is that a border that I would sort of feel familiar with living in this place? So yeah, I quite like the fact that the statistics invite sort of this questioning of where you are and how you define the borders of where you are.
Hey, come on. Well, don't laugh at me, you. It's not even on, but never mind. Oh, no, here we are. It's upside down now. There we go. Datacatcher. Spiritual.
No.
Just look at soulless.
No.
Nonsense.
What?
Yeah, he's a bit meaningful. Oh my god, that is a ridiculous question.
Nonsense. Do nonsense.
No, it's not. It's a good question. It's interesting. I really like it. It's good questions.
Do nonsense.
I'm going to say soulless.
Why?
Maybe that's me though. Would you like to live here? I do live here. Yes. No. Yes. Yes, I like it here.
So a lot of the facts that came up, I was expecting. I suppose living in the area and working in this area, I know that it's quite deprived. I know what sort of balance of people there are. So the ones that were quite interesting were probably the ones you don't see very much, like I suppose the fruit and vegetable one was quite interesting.
What was that?
So it was the percentage of people that don't have enough fruit and veg, which I suppose I could have worked out, but it was quite nice to see it. The other one was the sick in the bus stops, just because it was quite funny. I don't think it's made me think differently about the areas I live and work. One I remember was about the central heating, how many people have central heating or how many people have electricity. I can't remember exactly, but it was quite a large number that didn't, or significant, and that does time with my work because we work a lot on fuel poverty. Again, it wasn't something that I didn't know, but having it quantified was quite useful in a local area. I suppose then what I'd quite like to be able to do is go into that and then extrapolate it and look behind it, look at what that means for the rest of London.
It's been very interesting carrying it for the last 3 months. However, I have found it a little bit like a mobile phone. You always forget to charge the goddamn thing before you go out. Yeah, I thought about it and I thought it might be more productive to have it on an application, an app for your mobile phone and Android phones. People could download it, it'd save you the cost of producing one of these, and I'm sure people would be more likely to carry it and have it running on their mobile phone. I've used it around London, mainly in Islington area. However, I did travel up to Liverpool. I know along the way I stopped in Warwickshire and different areas, and the difference in data that it gave me was quite interesting. Liverpool, I would say, is one of the poorer cities in the country. And as it shows from the data it has collected. I got up there, I asked the locals for the questions, what are the dogs like round here? In Islington, the more handbag. In Liverpool, the more pit bull and tattoos. So, yeah.
I used it mainly here at the office to try it out, and then a few times I took it around Shoreditch, and this was mainly when we were going for lunch or for a coffee break. I have to say, for me, the main feature was its entertainment value. So it was very funny to take it along and sort of to look at it and see what it tells us. And so in a group we had, you know, discussions around, is this useful, or is this an interesting fact, or what does this mini survey tell us about the area. So it was a great, I think that social value, the entertainment factor was great.
I liked that the questions were quite kind of a lot of socially based, you know, the kind of how do you feel where you are, how is the environment where you are, and how is that kind of making you feel, is it noisy, is it polluted? So it felt quite personal. It wasn't kind of data in a wider context or data for businesses. It was very much personal data. How do you feel right now? Can you share that with us for the project? So I like that. It felt quite engaging.
One thing I would like to say is that I think a lot of the information I said was very insightful and kind of made you aware of your surroundings more than I would have been. I think there's definitely a call for people to have broader access to that kind of information, I think, so that when they are walking through the neighbourhood, they can, instead of just passing down the road and staring at their phone, they can actually draw in some information and maybe get more involved in the surroundings, the people who are around them as well, and understand what the challenges and issues are locally, and how maybe they can be a part in making things a little bit better. That's one thing that did strike me when I was using it.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Can you hear me? Mic test, mic test. I don't know basically what the actual device would be used for. Its idea of giving you information on location where you go was really interesting, because there was places that I went to that I didn't know certain things actually occurred. Scrolling through it was interesting, and maybe a colour screen would be nice, because that would make it easier to obviously appreciate.
Cool. You mentioned earlier like that you were really into sort of David Icke stuff.
Yeah.
And can you tell me a bit more about what you said earlier about how the device sort of relates to that in a way?
This is it. I mean, the device is good. It's a nice, innovative idea to see different forms of information wherever you're actually travelling around in the London area. As you said, I'm a David Icke fan, so I don't know what the final agenda is going to be, but collecting the information, I was fascinated, because I wouldn't have known that information.
Here previously said the dogs are family dogs. No. I shouldn't think so. Family dogs? No, I don't think so. Not in Deptford. They would be in Battersea, that's the difference. There are a lot of family dogs and dogs dressed in, and in Greenwich, because we've got a dog too. There are 6 post offices within a mile of this location. No, I wouldn't think that's correct. I found some of the questions extraordinarily strange, but I gather they were tongue-in-cheek anyway. Some of the things about the dogs and the cats, but in different areas there were different responses. But they were just funny questions, some of them, really quirky questions. And I couldn't understand why you wanted the answers to those. But it's not factual, it's only surmise, isn't it? It's what you think. It's your view of air pollution, or whether it's a cat area or a dog area. It's a personal view. It's not a factual view. So I can't see what value it will be in that.
At the beginning I was a bit, how can I say, not suspicious, but I didn't know if I liked it really, because I felt like I was getting too much information from it. Then it was like, for me it was an opportunity to reflect on how many information we are exposed to on a daily basis. And a couple of times I had with me during my commute in the morning, on the Bakerloo line, and well, a lot of people were looking at it and thinking, what is that? I'm sure someone in the control room of the Bakerloo line caught me on CCTV and was wondering, what is that?
Absolutely everyone who saw it was completely intrigued by the design, the shape of it and stuff. Everyone commented on it, and it is a really beautiful design. I mean, the colours and stuff, I saw a picture of all the different colours lined up and didn't realise that they weren't all blue and things. You can't really quite put it in your pocket. I'm just looking at my coat over there. I've got like reasonable sized pockets, but I was kind of careful not to get it really cold or wet as well. It was, you know, the end of December. I think if it was just that screen and it was looked like one of those old-fashioned sort of pager type things, then you would totally just have it in any pocket. But I did kind of answer the poll questions each time I took it to a new place, and very occasionally I would sort of get a bit of collected data from other people. So it would say like, other people in this area believe that, I don't know, one of the things that's, find their questions. Bags of sand, that's my road. Bags of sand dumped on Pellet Road is a local issue, and it's true that down by the post office at the end, there was like, there was loads of kind of junk on the pavement for about 6 months. It's just been cleared away a couple of weeks before Christmas.
I found it quite amusing, kind of like thinking the difference between my own area and where I work for some of these questions, you know, like what are the dogs like here? And I think, so in my, you know, one of the options is like handbags. So I work in Regent Street, I thought, yeah, they're definitely like a handbag. But then I kind of thought they're quite like weapons where I live, you know. You get a lot of kind of like staffies and stuff, you know, fighting dogs and stuff like that. So so it was a big contrast between where I work and where I live. And I kind of knew that anyway, but it was kind of interesting to see it in the statistics. So I'm looking here where I live, 4 to 5 bed house costs £570,000 to buy. But obviously, like, you know, average house price was something like 2.5 million quid or 3 million quid or something. A bit nosy about other people's areas, you know what I mean? So it's like, you know, house prices are lower here than somewhere else. And you're like, oh, really? And then, you know, so is that comparison thing's quite interesting. I guess the only thing about the questions bit is kind of like there's no real feedback, you know, once you've entered your question, you know. It'd be kind of like, and I'm not sure exactly what feedback I would expect, but even like saying, even a very elementary sort of thing like, thanks for, you know, we've got your answer.
Well, the first thing I liked is it's very easy. I was a bit surprised actually how simple they'd made it. You know, like there's one button, you just turn it left or right. It's quite a sort of eye-catching design. And I remember the first few days I took it out and I'd sort of start conversations with, did you know average house price in this area is, or there are 300 people who are registered as homeless in this borough. I think for it to be useful, you'd maybe need it as an app, and you'd maybe need to be able to request the information. If you'd asked me, where do you think's got a higher life expectancy, Islington or, you know, Bulwell in Nottingham, I would have told you, I probably would have guessed, well, I'm going to guess Islington's got higher, but I don't think I ever would have guessed like how stark those differences are. And yeah, I guess that was the main thing I took away from it, was walking around different areas in London and seeing quite how stark the differences were, you know, which is the sort of thing you kind of have in the back of your head, but it's never as obvious.
I don't think so. I don't think it changed any of my perceptions of an area. Like some of the things seemed quite shocking actually, some of the facts I was like, really? Like I always questioned whether it was true. Obviously it is, but I was like, oh. I wouldn't like take it out and scroll through it and then put it back and then do it again. I would like take it out, scroll through and then be like, oh okay. And then I'd sort of like almost get a bit bored and be like, oh okay, I don't really need to know anything more. Or like sometimes it repeat facts. I think maybe that was a problem as well. Like if I was taking it to work every day, some of the facts were reoccurring or similar, I might just be like, oh okay, like that's enough, and put it away and then not use it for the rest of the day. And I didn't really see the correlation between the questions that I asked and the information that I gave you. Like the information that I gave you is all statistics and it's all facts and it's all based on truth, whereas the questions that I asked you were all opinion based, so I didn't really see how the two sides function really correlated. Like it might be like, is this a cat or dog area? But then the answers might be cat, dog, fox, or like, I don't know what the other one was, but it's just, it didn't really, I don't know, I was just a bit like, I didn't really understand that maybe. I think if I was maybe moving house, or like if I was moving to an area and I wanted to know a lot about it, I think it'd be really useful because you could take it with you and learn, I guess, sort of like what type of area it is via the device. But I think in general, some of the stuff that it told me, I wasn't really as interested to know about. I think if any of them facts I ever did want to find out, I could probably just Google it if I needed to know.
The tweets are really interesting. I don't know how you know it filters the tweets, but it always comes up with, you know, quite angry tweets as well, or just yeah, and just oh yeah, there was actually one that was quite good. It said, I think it's a road not far from here. It says that number 48 on whatever road, it said it's a cause of problem, you know. It's been like, you know, something is happening at number 48 on that road, and I just wanted to know what was happening, you know, but I didn't dare knocking at the door. And you know, it was quite mesmerizing to just, you know, keep staring at the screen and see what fact's gonna come next, you know. So it was kind of like, it was a good party trick, yeah. But yeah, I don't think it's meant to be taken too, I mean, the data is not meant to be taken too seriously, but I think the device itself is very interesting, especially in this day and age where, you know, an iPhone can do pretty much about everything, you know. Just, you know, apart from toasting bread, I mean, yeah, you know. So it was quite interesting to actually hold something, you know, like just the grip of it is quite interesting. It's not just like a black square.
I found some really interesting information about where I live, my local area. So we moved there about 1.5 years ago. We bought a house, and Eltham doesn't have a great reputation, so we found out about it just because that was the place where we could afford, and then we decided to do a bit more research around it, and then all this, like, it's a racist area and people are racist, you know, all of the sort of the media stuff started coming up then. But we went and like spent a bit of time there and talked to locals and thought, well, everyone's nice, so we'll buy a house there. But the data, and like I'm sort of quite a rigorous researcher when it comes to sort of making decisions. So I did a lot of research initially on like local police data in the area, sort of really researched well before we made the decision of buying. But then when I used Datacatcher in the area, it gave me loads of information that I hadn't picked up or wasn't in my radar, although I thought I was being quite thorough. What I was doing was getting these interesting facts and then WhatsApping them to my friends. So I was like using both of these at the same time, or to my husband, to say, oh, look, I discovered this thing about where we live. But overall, I think what I found really interesting was that it's a great way of like quickly scoping out an area. So as part of the work that I do, like we often do projects in lots of different areas and have to quickly get a sense of what the local community is like. And I felt like that's a brilliant tool to use as a research tool.
Some of the data I was quite surprised at because when I pressed it and looked at what they said about the area that I was in, most of the areas I'd visited and used the Datacatcher was areas I'd perhaps been to before anyway. You kind of got an insight of an area, and depending on how it's going to be used after, if it's going to be sort of used for public domain, it would be quite interesting for other people that don't know that area to be able to have access and look at and go, a percentage of people that live in that area or have visited that area have said this about the area. Because it'd be interesting to see 10 people had the Datacatcher, what would they say about, let's say, Deptford? Would we all have similar views because it's the area we live in, or would we all have 10 different views?
The Datacatcher provides kind of a new layer to the city with data or information that you can't really see when you walk around. So it shows a layer of the city that you can't otherwise perceive. So I think that's really fascinating. It's a new way of exploring an area or a place. I thought the idea of using it on the tube would be really interesting, where you could see the differences across areas while you travel. that didn't work, unfortunately, because it didn't connect to the cell tower quickly enough. But the idea of exploring a city with this kind of data I find quite interesting. And I like that it's also interactive. I think that's quite key to being interested over time, that it also has some kind of way of interacting with it. The nice thing is that it has these kind of different ways of interacting with it. And this only provides you information about your area. So it's like a dedicated tool to explore your area. Whereas an app, I mean, your phone does pretty much everything. So this just makes you more aware of this is only for that purpose. And I will use this when I'm interested in exploring my area or finding out more about this neighborhood. I think that's really nice that it's a custom device that's really dedicated to one purpose.
I didn't take it out much in the street, but I went to fight a parking ticket, and the adjudicator even said, "Oh, what's that?" And we spent 5 minutes looking at the information and chatting with it, but it somehow didn't convince him to cancel my parking ticket. So it's very simple. It's got a single control, so you can't really get it wrong, and it's so different from anything else that you see out there that it immediately gets people asking questions, like, what's this bright yellow thing that looks unlike anything I've ever seen before? People are curious, and people will start asking about it. If it was just done with the same functionality but as an app for your phone, then immediately you would be disconnected from the people around you, because anytime you're sitting looking at an app on your phone, you're ignoring everybody else around you, and everybody else around you is leaving you alone because you've demonstrated that you're not interested in interacting with the people around you. When you take this out, people want to look at it, and people are wondering what it is, and people will talk to you about it even.